President Joe Biden's Indo-Pacific strategy, there has been a lot of progress made vis-a-vis Taiwan as well. What are the expectations from countries like India now that the new government would be sworn in May in Taiwan? We've had the labor mobility agreement in the recent past, an MOU signed to that effect. Could you please tell us what are the expectations moving ahead and what all progress can we see between India and Taiwan?
Yeah, so Lai's predecessor, Tsai Ing-wen, saw much strengthening of ties regionally with potential allies against Chinese aggression. And under that, the strengthening of ties often occurred under U.S. auspices. I think that's expected to continue under Lai, who has emphasized he will continue Tsai Ing-wen's foreign policy, whether that's in terms of building economic relations with other countries in the region to avoid reliance on China, which includes labor agreements, or in terms of the geopolitical contestation from China. I think many moves do depend on the U.S. and the future course of action that the U.S. will take in terms of the region and setting frameworks that Taiwan will align itself with. But I think one expects these further attempts to strengthen such ties, which does include with India.
Can we see more cooperation, especially when it comes to students who could travel to Taiwan, that there could be more educational exchanges and scholarships that are already there? Could we see them increase in the future?
Absolutely, and that already does occur, but I think there could definitely be more efforts in that vein. That's an easy way to shore up relations, and I think it's a way to ensure that there are people that know Taiwan and could potentially work as bridges between Taiwan and India. And so I think that is quite important. I think the government, if it has foresight, I think will actually increase funding for such measures.
With the current DPP, or the Democratic Progressive Party, which Lai Ching-te would be sworn in as the president, it doesn't enjoy the majority in the legislative yuan, and you also mentioned that new policy initiatives could take time. Would that have an effect on your relationships with Indo-Pacific partners, or moving ahead with forging ties with new countries and establishing relationships further? Would that derail efforts, A? And B, would it affect the existing relationships that you've worked so hard to build on?
Yeah, diplomacy is often the purview of the executive branch of government, and so I think it's not as likely to be affected unless it does become a political flashpoint, such as, for example, labor agreements might end up being. And so if that were the case, the KMT and pan-blue-leaning parties, which is, say, historically more pro-China parties, may try to sink these efforts to shore up ties. But if it occurs through the executive branch of government and does not draw public scrutiny in a way that leads to controversy, I think it's expected to proceed as one would expect.
How have you seen the relationship between India and Taiwan so far? What does the youth think about Indians in particular, and what all do they expect from a country like India, particularly the youth, when they see even people-to-people ties or cultural ties? Except for tea, we do have more engagement, and of course, even beyond Bollywood. I wanted to understand what other spheres can be explored between the two to enhance their ties.
I actually think that particularly in the past few years, as Taiwan has more political and economic ties with Southeast Asia, one sees more presence from Southeast Asia media and also food culture in terms of restaurants and etc. But I think actually India, there could be much more done on this front, because there's many movies, for example, or bands. Taiwanese people, or young people in particular, like indie bands. But then I think particularly for Taiwan, many young people are into music. So I think cultural activities that the government can have a role in playing or developing these ties is quite important. And I think particularly there's still going to be a lot of room for growth on that front.
Thank you, Brian, for taking our time and giving us your insights. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.